Thank you for inviting me to speak today, and it's an honor for me to be up here to speak. And my wish is to encourage us all in our practice. This morning I'll be speaking about Fascicle 26, Jinsu, from Eihei Dogen's collection of writings, the Shobogenzo, the Treasury of the True Dharma Eye. Jinsu was written in 1241 in Koshoji Monastery. This was a Dharma talk that he gave on December 19th, 1241. And for those of you who do not know Eihei Dogen, he is our founder of our school of Zen, Soto Zen, 13th century. Okay. This fascicle, Jinsu, is translated as miracles in the Tanahashi edition, and translated as spiritual powers in the Sotoshu edition. And Dogen shows us fascinating views about miracles that shift kaleidoscopically our understanding of them. Dogen describes some very rarefied things that I am in metaphors that I don't understand, so I will be speaking only of the simpler things. So Dogen begins the fascicle Miracles with this statement. The miracles I am speaking of are the daily activities of Buddhas, which they do not neglect to practice. Now, this is a surprising way to begin. He's beginning in mid-discourse, as if we walked into his Dharma talk kind of late. And clever Dogen, impish Dogen. What he's saying, he's telling us that there's no end or beginning to speaking about miracles. So, what are these daily activities, these miracles that Buddhas do not neglect to practice? Well, let's begin with the story he gives to illustrate this. One day, while Guishan was lying down, Yangshan Huiji came to see him. Guishan turned to face the wall. Yangshan said, "I am your student. Please don't be formal." Guishan started to get up. Yangshan rose to leave. Guishan stopped him, calling, "Huiji." Yangshan returned. Guishan said, "Let me tell you about my dreams." Yangshan leaned forward to listen. Guishan simply said, "Would you interpret my dream for me? I want to see how you do it." In response, Yangshan brought a basin of water and a towel. Guishan washed his face and sat up. Then Shanyang came in. Guishan said, "Huiji and I have been sharing miracles. This is no small matter." Guishan said to Shanyang said, "I was next door. I heard you." Guishan said to him, "Why don't you try now?" Shanyang made a bowl of tea and brought it to him. Guishan praised them, saying, "You two students surpass even Shariputra and Moggallana with your miraculous activity." This is how I imagine the scene. One day, while Master Guishan is lying down in his room, attendant Yangshan comes in, and Guishan turns to face the wall. Attendant Yangshan says, "I am your disciple. Please, there's no need for you to be formal with me. Master Guishan thinks, okay, and he begins to get up. Attendant Yanshan starts to leave the room, maybe to give him his privacy. But Master Guishan calls him back and says, let me tell you my dream. Would you interpret it? I want to see how you do it. Mark, notice. He doesn't say, I want to know or I want to hear how you would interpret my dream. I want to see how you do it. In response, Yangshan interprets his teacher's dream by taking thoughtful care of him, bringing him a basin of water and a towel, just simply continuing to do his usual attendant duties. Nothing special. Master Guishan washes his face. Just as he finishes washing his face and sits down, attendant Shanyang comes in. Master Guishan tells him, Yangshan and I have been sharing miracles. This is no small matter. Shanyang says, I was next door and heard you. I know all about it. Guishan says, okay, then you try. Shanyang also acts by caring for his master in the usual way, making him a bowl of tea and bringing it to him. Master Guishan praises them, saying they both surpass two of Buddha's disciples with their miraculous activity. A few lines later, Dogen says, if you want to understand Buddha's miracles, you should study Guishan's words. This is no small matter. The whole scene in the story is imbued with an understated ease, a simple reverence between the teacher and the students. This is the dream Guishan wants to see and does see from his attendants. His attendants interpret his dreams with simple, caring actions, not with words. Something else to remember and note is that the basin holding the water, the towel to dry the face, the bowl for the tea would have been handmade and cherished, not readily replaced in a 1241 temple, and certainly made with the Chinese eye for beauty of line and form. We might forget to value these objects in the story from the habit in our culture to carelessly throw away and replace things. We probably do not notice at first that this modest story, that in the miraculous light of Buddha mind, everything speaks of a nothing special, natural, reciprocal attention, nothing extra, care, respect, and quiet veneration between all beings and things, between everything. Isn't this something of a dream come true? Would you say this is a small matter? Okay. The description of the activity between Guishan and his attendants are so usual, unremarkable, that we might wonder about it being called a miracle. Dogen tells us more. He says, the teaching, practice, and enlightenment of Buddhas are all, in fact, actualized through miracles. Teaching, practice, enlightenment, all occur through miracles. So, what are these miracles he's talking about? Dogen proceeds to tell us, like he did his monks back in 1241, that our point of view is upside down by describing what he calls minor miracles and great miracles. Minor miracles are what you and I would call extraordinary events. Great miracles, like, for example, a tuft of hair breathing in the vast ocean, or a mustard seed storing Mount Sumeru. That's the highest mountain in the east, I think. So, Dogen, in contrast, says that the interactions between Guishan and his students are to be regarded as a series of miracles, miracles that go beyond miracles. He explains that precisely because the ordinary is ordinary, it is a great miracle, because amongst other qualities, the ordinary is not limited to special circumstances or special conditions, not dependent on special practices or realizations, and not limited to the past, the present, or future. Great miracles are ordinary. They can and they do happen anytime and anywhere. The power of these Buddha's miracles in the inexhaustible ocean that is this world, this phenomenal world where we live. This power is boundless, and because it is boundless, it is unchanging. Nothing whatsoever limits it in any way. This is its unchanging quality. The great paradox of boundless power in the ordinary. What an amazing thing to say. What is the ordinary? Let's look at the quality of the ordinary. I'm struck by the way it just slides away when I try to look at it. Isn't it odd that it's not easy to see the ordinary? In fact, when you look closely, you start to wonder, is anything at all ordinary? Definition of ordinary: lacking special distinction, not exceptional in any way, expected, commonplace, from the Latin root for rule. Ordinary things are the unnoticed rules in our lives. Everyday, mundane, routine, commonly encountered. The ordinary has a very quiet, undefinable quality. It is extremely subtle. It is unexpectedly full. It is latent with capabilities. Dogen tells us it is ceaseless, unrestricted, inexhaustible, and this is why Dogen tells us it is G-R-E-A-T, great, in capital letters. For sentient beings, the ordinary is the daytime phase of a great miracle. In the everyday, miracles are hidden in plain sight, camouflaged, subsumed into common activities. Think about it. When something is ordinary, it kind of tends to disappear, and it only reappears when something interrupts us doing it, or we forget to do it. And how about this? Every enlightenment occurrence that happens in our Zen stories all occur in the midst of an everyday activity, out of nowhere, not by any intention of the enlightenedee, sweeping the ground and a pebble hits bamboo, drawing water from a well and the bottom of the bucket falls out, walking across a bridge and seeing your reflection in the water. Then Dogen goes on to tell us how miracles are for Buddhas. For Buddhas, miracles don't look like Buddhas because they're everyday activities. They don't know that they're miracles. They don't take or grasp them as miracles. Does that remind you of something? That's a lot like us. But with the difference that Buddhas know miracles are something to practice. And Buddhas do not forget to practice these miracles. What could be this everyday practice Buddhas do not forget? Reading on in the Fascicle, Dogen shifts the focus, relating miracles to thusness, as in the Zen saying, just this is it. And he tells us the story of Dongshan and Yunyan to illustrate it. Dongshan Liangzhe, who would later become Great Master Wuben, was once attendant to Yunyan, who said, Liangzhe, what are miracles? Dongshan politely brought his hands together at his chest and stood near him. Yunyan asked again, what are miracles? Dongshan bade him farewell and walked away. This story is like an enactment of just this is it. The question, what are miracles, cannot be answered with words, but is known by and demonstrated in these two persons, people relating. When Dongshan, without saying a word, brings his hands to his chest in a gesture of respect and stands near Yangshan, it's as if he's saying, I am right here with you inside this question. And when walking away is saying, although right here with you, this question is something best for you to answer. This story also highlights the plain strangeness of hearing something and understanding something. Hearing and understanding. How is that? Dogen says, in this story, words are heard and meanings of the miracles are understood. There is a merging like a box and its cover joining. Here is the reference to box and lid fit from Sekito Kisen's Harmony of Difference and Equality that we chanted this morning. It's such an appropriate metaphor because hearing and understanding is really kind of like a box and lid fitting. Hearing and understanding, when directly examined, eludes definition and are wonderfully inexplicable. I want to tell you a story that to me is an example of just this is it. A story of a wondrous, unforgettable event I experienced, especially because it was wrapped in a totally ordinary context. At one time during Sesshin, Vicky, Trisha, and I had kitchen cleanup duty because Vicky is Vicky, Trisha is Trisha, and I am me. Together we worked quickly and efficiently, flowing and weaving around each other in the kitchen. We knew what needed to be done and could anticipate each other's moves. We were like a single silent stream winding through the kitchen. In my peripheral awareness, I could sense harmony rising between us. I have no memory of us ever stopping to discuss a single thing. And then suddenly, the moment came. The kitchen was clean and in order. We came together from 3 different sides of the kitchen. at once, looking at each other, recognizing and slightly amazed by what happened. We giggled with delight at the very same instant. In that moment, to me, it felt like we had conjured up an invisible whirlwind, lifting us like 3 dandelion seeds, twirling in happiness, basking in the sun of our friendship, and then gently set us back down on the floor. Understanding without saying a word, we bowed to each other and went off to rest before the next period of zazen. Going back to the Fascicle. Dogen now starts talking about perception in the form of the 6 senses. Remember, in Buddhism, the thinking mind is considered one of the physical senses. He calls the 6 senses 6 types of miracles of a Buddha. A sentient being is like a gathering point of the 6 senses. Life coming in through the 6 sense doors converges in the point called me, through which we experience, I am here. He says, a Buddha enters forms, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and objects of the mind and is not confused by them. A Buddha is not confused by them because Buddhas let the 6 senses be, without, Dogen says, creating marks and appearances from the mind's illusions, without moving to touch from attachment or turning away from aversion. Letting the 6 senses be, a Buddha knows they're undefiled. As Dogen says, undefiled means unstained. Unstained means undivided mind, means I am always intimate with this. There we have it. This is how a Buddha practices miracles, which Dogen says is a practice grounded on the earth, grounded in the 6 senses, grounded in direct perception of what comes to us. This is how we can practice miracles like Buddhas, all day long, every day. Yeah, but, when I look, I notice I'm full of attachments and aversions. Yes, this is true for us. And for this, there's something we call practice, where we apply, use, implement, perform the Buddha way, Buddha method, Buddha activity. This is what our practice is all about. And what is interesting and ironic, Dogen says, is that we do already practice miracles every day, but we simply do not notice that things are just as they are. Things are just as they are. Even if we do not know that miracles happen, he says 3,000 times in the morning and 800 times in the evening, miracles do not cease to be miracles just because we don't notice them. However, we often do more readily notice during Seishin, when we have been doing a lot of zazen. The 6 senses are flickering all day long, but our attention normally focuses on what traps us and catches us in the snares of the self, and we veer off distracted. We don't notice the direct trueness, communication, and no separation that we have with everything through the 6 senses. We are in direct contact with everything. Then Dogen Buddha says, to practice like a miracle is to practice like a tree or a rock. Trees and rocks look like they're continually receiving and transmitting something. What would practicing like a tree or a rock be like? In praise, I praise our founder Tenshin Zenki. Trees and rocks receive and transmit silence and stillness. For those of you who have not met Tenshin Zenki yet, silence and stillness are one of his expressions. Trees and rocks seem to be aware of silence and stillness. Dogen says in his writings, trees and rocks, along with tiles and pebbles, are practicing Buddha activity. Don't you think trees and rocks look like they're practicing Zazen? Don't you think we look like trees and rocks when we're practicing Zazen? Our secular culture is frenetically busy, anxious, forward-rushing, and really seems almost intentionally designed to sidetrack us from experiencing ourselves directly, distracting us from this thing we call centering the self on the self, just being ourselves. So much in our world fosters the belief that our life should be happening some other way, generating a lot of dissatisfaction, that our life is something not what is here and now. We avoid experiencing our existence. Life flows through us, and we don't recognize it. We keep life at an arm's length, sidetracked by many trivial, frittering worries, thrashing fretfully about in the shallows. I kind of hesitate to say this, thinking that some of us might feel uncomfortable, but looking at all of these things means going deep, and going deep may seem alien and a little embarrassing. We may think it's pretentious or sanctimonious to go deep. We may not trust ourselves. Who am I, superficial being that I know I am, in the privacy of my mind, to go deep? What I say to you is, do not be afraid to go deep. You will never-endingly find jewels there. Sometimes we may go around believing we are unhappy because this or that is off in our relationship, or this or that is wrong in our job, or the terrifying state of the world, when our sadness truly comes from our avoidance or separation from what is most deep and important to us. I'm not saying our concerns are not valid, and we can and should address them, but everything shifts and aligns when we are in touch with what is most important to us. Remembering what is most important to us pulls us out of distress and darkness. Because you know, how well can we work with the structure of our lives if the ground of our being is unsure? It is so enigmatic because for each one of us, right here is the greatest mystery. Right here is the greatest gift. We have been given a directly transmitted, straightforward practice, the practice of the Buddhas, to realize ourselves being ourselves, our life. That practice is Zazen, where we come face to face with the fundamental point. Remember those times when out of the blue something stirred you? A fleeting but delicate, and at the same time thrilling something came upon you like a little slap in the face, and a mantle of light fell across everything. And suddenly, you were really here with everything. Wasn't it glorious without end? Who can say this isn't a miracle?